Great-granddad must have been feeling very pleased with himself as he walked behind the donkey, for he began singing snatches of popular local opera, making up the words as he went along. Wu Da Lang drank poison. How bad he felt! His 7 lengths of intestines and the 8 lobes of his lungs lurched and trembled. The ugly man took a beautiful wife, bringing calamity to his door. Ah, yeah. Big Wu's belly is killing him, waiting for second brother to complete his mission, to return home and avenge his murder. Grandma's heart thumped wildly as she listened to great-granddad's crazy song. The image of that scowling young man, sword in hand, appeared in a flash. Who was he? What was he up to? It dawned on her that, even though they didn't know each other, their lives were already as close as fish in water. Their soul encounter had been lightning quick and was over in a flash, like a dream, yet not like a dream. She had been shaken to the depths of her soul, overcome by spirits. Resign yourself to your fate, she thought as she heaved a long sigh. Grandma let the donkey proceed freely as she listened to her dad's fractured rendition of the Wu Da Long song. A breath of wind and a puff of fire, and there they were, in Toad Hollow. The donkey kept its nostrils closed tight as it pawed the ground, refusing to go any further, even when Great-Granddad smacked it on the rump with his sorghum switch. "Get moving, you bastard! Get going, you rotten donkey bastard!" The switch sang out against the donkey's rump, but instead of moving forward, it backed up. An awful stench assailed Grandma's nostrils. Quickly dismounting and covering her nose with her sleeve, she tugged on the reins to get the donkey moving. It looked up at her, its mouth open, tears filling its eyes. "Donkey," she said, "grit your teeth and walk past it. There's no mountain that can't be scaled and no river that can't be forded." Moved by her words, it raised its head and brayed, then galloped forward, dragging her along so fast her feet barely touched the ground and her clothes fluttered in the wind like red clouds tumbling in the sky. She glanced at the sham highwayman's corpse as they passed. A scene of filth and corruption greeted her eyes. 1 million fat maggots had gorged themselves until only a few pieces of rotten flesh covered his bones. Grandma climbed back onto the donkey after they'd managed to drag one another past Toad Hollow. Gradually, she became aware of the smell of sorghum wine floating on the northeast wind. She whipped up her courage, but as she drew nearer to the climactic scene of the drama, her sense of fear and foreboding was as strong as ever. Steam rose from the ground under the blazing sun, but shivers ran down her spine. The village where the Shans lived was far away, and Grandma, surrounded by the thick aroma of sorghum wine, felt as if mar- felt as if the marrow in her spine had frozen solid. A man in the field to her right began to sing in a loud, full voice. "Little sister, boldly you move on, your jaw set like a steel trap, bones as hard as bronze from high atop the embroidery tower. You toss down the embroidered ball, striking me on the head. Now join me in a toast with dark red sorghum wine." "Hey there, opera singer, come out! That's terrible singing, just awful!" Great-Granddad shouted towards the sorghum field. Chapter 3 of 2 Sorghum Wine. Father finished his fish cake as soon as he stood on the withered grass, turned bloody red by the setting sun. Then he walked gingerly up to the edge of the water. There, on the stone bridge across the Blackwater River, the lead struck, its tires flattened by the barrier of linked rakes, crouched in front of the other three. Its railings and fenders were stained by splotches of gore. The upper half of a Japanese soldier was draped over one of the railings, his steel helmet hanging upturned by a strap from his neck. Dark blood dripped into it from the tip of his nose. The water sobbed as it flowed down the riverbed. The heavy, dull rays of sunlight were pulverized by tiny ripples on its surface. Autumn insects hidden in the damp mud beneath the water plants set up a mournful chirping. Sorghum in the fields sizzled as it matured. The fires were nearly out in the third and fourth trucks. Their blackened hulks crackled and split, adding to the discordant symphony. Father's attention was riveted by the sight and the sound of blood dripping from the Japanese soldier's nose into the steel helmet, each drop splashing crisply and sending out rings of concentric circles in the deepening pool. Father had barely passed his 15th birthday. The sun had nearly set on the 9th day of the 8th lunar month of the year 1939, and the dying embers of its rays cast a red pall over the world below. Father's face, turned unusually gaunt by the fierce day-long battle, was covered by a layer of purplish mud. He squatted down upriver from the corpse of Wang Wenyi's wife and scooped up some water in his hands. The sticky water oozed through the cracks between his fingers and dropped noisily to the ground. Sharp pains racked his cracked, swollen lips, and the brackish taste of blood seeped between his teeth and slid down his throat, moistening the parched membranes. He experienced a satisfying pain, and even though the taste of blood made his stomach churn, he scooped up handful after handful of water, drinking it down until it soaked up the dry, cracked fist cake in his stomach. He stood up straight and took a deep breath of relief. Night was definitely about to fall. The ridge of the sky's dome was tinged with the final silver of red. The scorched smell from the burnt-out hulks of the truck had faded. A loud bang made Father jump. He looked up, just in time to see exploded bits of truck tires settling slowly into the river like black bits of butterflies, and countless kernels of Japanese rice, some black, some white, soaring upward, then raining down on the still surface of the river. As he spun around, his eyes settled on the tiny figure of Wang Wenyi's wife lying at the edge of the river, the blood from her wounds staining the water around her. He scrambled at the top of the dike and yelled, "Dad!" Granddad was standing on the dike, the flesh on his face wasted away by the day's battle, the bones jutting out beneath his dark, weathered skin. In the dying sunlight, Father noticed that Granddad's short-cropped hair was turning white. With fear in his aching heart, Father nudged him timidly. "Dad," he said, "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Tears were running down Granddad's face. He was sobbing. The Japanese machine gun that Detachment Leader Leng had so magnanimously left behind sat at his feet like a crouching wolf, its muzzle gaping. "Say something, Dad. Eat that fish cake, then drink some water. You'll die if you don't eat or drink." Granddad's head drooped until it rested on his chest. He seemed to lack the strength to support its weight. He knelt at the top of the dike, holding his head in his hands and sobbing. After a moment or two, he looked up and cried out, "Guan, my son, is it all over for us?" Father stared wide-eyed and fearfully at Granddad. The glare in his diamond-like pupils embodied the heroic, unstrained spirit of Grandma, a flicker of hope that shone and lit up Granddad's heart. "Dad," Father said, "don't give up. I'll work hard on my shooting, like when you shot fish at the inlet to perfect your 7-plum blossom skill. Then we'll go settle accounts with that rotten son of a bitch, Hockey Lang." Granddad sprang to his feet and bellowed 3 times, half wail, half crazed laughter. A line of dark purple blood trickled out of the corner of his teeth. "That's it, son. That's the way to talk." He picked up one of Grandma's fish cakes from the dark earth, bit off a chunk, and swallowed it. Cake crumbs and flecks of bubbly blood stuck to his stained teeth. Father heard Granddad's painful cries as the dry cake stuck in his throat and saw the rough edges make their way down his neck. Dad, Father said, go drink some water to soak up the cake in your belly. Granddad stumbled along the dike to the river's edge, where he knelt among the water plants and lapped in the water like a draught animal. When he'd had his fill, he drew his hands back and buried his head in the river, holding it under the water for about half the time it takes to smoke a pipeful of tobacco. Father started getting nervous as he gazed at his dad, frozen like a bronze frog at the river's edge. Finally, Granddad jerked his dripping head out of the water and gasped for breath. Then he walked back up to the dike to stand in front of Father, whose eyes were glued to the cascading drops of water. Granddad shook his head, sending 49 drops, large and small, flying like so many pearls. Doguan, he said, come with Dad, let's go see the men. Granddad staggered down the road, weaving in and out of the sorghum field on the western edge. Father right on his heels, they stepped on broken, twisted stalks of sorghum and spent cartridges that gave off a faint yellow glint. Frequently, they bent down to look at the bodies of their fallen comrades, who lay amid the sorghum, deathly grimaces frozen on their faces. Granddad and Father shook them in hope of finding one who was alive, but they were all dead, all of them. Father's and Granddad's hands were covered with sticky blood. Father looked down at two soldiers on the westernmost edge of the field. One lay with the muzzle of his shotgun in his mouth, the back of his neck a gory mess, like a rotten wasp's nest. The other lay across a bayonet buried in his chest. When Granddad turned them over, Father saw their legs had been broken and their bellies slit open. Granddad sighed as he withdrew the shotgun from the one soldier's mouth and pulled the bayonet from the other's chest. Father followed Granddad across the road into the sorghum field to the east, which had also been swept by machine gun fire. They turned over the bodies of more soldiers lying strewn across the ground. Burglar Liu was on his knees, bugled in hand as though he were blowing it. Burglar Liu, Granddad called out excitedly. No response. Father ran up and nudged him. Uncle Liu, he shouted as the bugle dropped to the ground. When Father looked more closely, he discovered that the burglar's face was already as hard as a rock. In the lightly scared section of field, some few dozen paces from the dike, Granddad and Father came up upon Fang Seven, whose guts had been spilled out of his belly, and another soldier named Consumptive Four, who, after taking a bullet in the leg, had fainted from blood loss. Holding his blood-stained hand above the man's mouth, Granddad detected a faint sign of dry, hot breath from his nostrils. Fang Seven had stuffed his own intestines back into his abdomen and covered the gaping wound with sorghum leaves. He was still conscious. When he spotted Granddad and Father, his lips twitched and he said haltingly, Commander, Danfor, when you see my old lady, give some money. Don't let her remarry. My brother. No sons. If she leaves, Fang family line ended. Father knew that Fang Seven had a year-old son, that there was so much milk in his mother's gourd-like breasts that he was growing up fair and plump. I'll carry you back, little brother, Granddad said. He bent over and pulled Fang Seven onto his back as Fang screeched in pain. Father saw the leaves fall away and his white, speckled intestines slid out of his belly, releasing a breath of foul, hot air. Granddad laid him back on the ground. Elder brother, Fang pleaded, put me out of my misery. Don't torture me. Shoot me, please. Granddad squatted down and held Fang Seven's hand. Little brother, I can carry you over to see Zhang Xinyi. Dr. Zhang, he'll patch you up. Elder brother, do it now. Don't make me suffer. Past saving. Granddad squinted into the murky, late-afternoon August sky, in which a dozen or so stars shone brightly, and let out a long howl before turning to Father. Are there bullets in your gun, Doguan? Yes. Father handed his pistol to Granddad, who released the safety catch, took another look into the darkening sky, and spun the cylinder. Rest easy, brother. As long as you Jan Ao has food to eat, your wife and child will never go hungry. Fang Seven nodded and closed his eyes.
Granddad raised the revolver as though he were lifting a huge boulder. The pressure of the moment made him quake. Fang Seven's eyes snapped open. Elder brother. Granddad spun his face away and burst of flame leaped out of the muzzle, lighting up Fang Seven's greenish scalp. The kneeling man shot forward and fell on top of his own exposed guts. Father found it hard to believe that a man's belly could hold such a pile of intestines. Consumptive 4, you'd better be on your way too. Then you can get an early start on your next life and come back to seek revenge on those Jap bastards. He pumped the last cartridge into the heart of the dying consumptive 4. The killing had become a way of life for Granddad. He dropped his arm to his side and let it hang there like a dead snake. The pistol fell to the ground. Father bent over and picked it up, stuck it to his belt, and tugged on Granddad, who stood as though drunk or paralyzed. Paralyzed. Let's go home, Dad. Let's go home. Home? Go home? Yes. Go home. Go home. Father pulled him up onto the dike and began walking awkwardly towards the west. The cold rays of the half-moon on that August 9th evening filled the sky, falling lightly on the backs of Granddad and Father and illuminating the heavy black water river, which was like the great but clumsy Chinese race. White eels thrown into a frenzy by the bloody water writhed and sparkled on the surface. The blue chill of the water merged with the red warmth of the sorghum, broadening the dikes to form an airy, transparent mist that reminded Father of the heavy, spongy log that had accompanied them as they set out for battle that morning. Only one day, but it seemed like 10 years, yet it also seemed like that, like the blink of an eye. Father thought back to how his mother had walked him to the edge of the fog-enshrouded village. The scene seemed so far away, though it was right there in front of his eyes. He recalled how difficult the march through the sorghum field had been, how Wang Wenyi had been wounded in the ear by a stray bullet, how the 50 or so soldiers had approached the bridge looking like the droppings of a goat. Then there was a mute's razor-sharp saber knife, the sinister eyes, the Jap head sailing through the air, the shriveled ass of the old Jap officer, Mother soaring to the top of the dike as though on the wings of a phoenix, the fist cakes rolling on the ground, stalks of sorghum falling all around, red sorghum crumpling like fallen heroes. Granddad hoisted Father, who was asleep on his feet, onto his back and wrapped his arms, one healthy, the other injured, around Father's legs. The pistol in Father's belt banged against Granddad's back, sending sharp pains straight to his heart. He had belonged to the dark, skinny, handsome, and well-educated Adjutant Wren. Granddad was thinking about how this pistol had ended the lives of Adjutant Wren. Bang 7 and Consumptive 4. He wanted nothing more than to heave the execrable thing into the black water river. But it was only a thought. Bending over, he shifted his sleeping son higher up on his back, partly to relieve the excruciating pain in his heart.